welcome back to the channel and more Blood and Plunder coverage for you. So we're continuing on with more of the scenario reviews. So we looked at Raid in our previous video. Check that one out if you haven't already. Today we're moving on to Control the Field. And here we got something that's going to be a little bit of a departure from the first two here. So as always, we'll take a look at the land version first, then amphibious, and then move on to the naval version at the end here. So setup-wise, the entire board is land, obviously, and no specific terrain setup is required. So basically, come up with whatever you want there. Deployment-wise, the defending player chooses one board corner, and the attacker will basically be in the opposite corner. We'll see that in just a second. And before any units are placed, an objective marker is placed in the center of the board. Two more markers are placed, each 12 away, on either side of the central marker along the center line of the board. We'll see the diagram in just a second. And basically, nothing can go in impassable terrain, which makes sense. As always, 6 turns here. So basically, it's opposing table quarters for deployment. And then the objective of this one's pretty nice and simple here. So basically, the attacker defender force gains a strike point if the enemy force has units that are not shaken within 4 of any 2 objective markers, and that force has no units that are shaken within 4 of the same marker. So basically, control 2 of the 3 markers, and you'll give the enemy a strike point, basically, whenever you do that. So that being said, it does make sense to at some point kind of like at least try for all 3 of them, just because really you want to pick one and like sort of for sure hold that and keep the enemy off of that one, and then really just work on contesting and getting that second one. But if you have a little bit on all 3, it certainly makes the opponent work a little bit harder. So this is a nice, interesting one where there's not necessarily a difference between what the attacker and defender are trying to do. It's just both people are trying to control more objectives here. And then basically the objectives would be spread out along the center line here, as we can see with the white squares there. So pretty cool one overall, and digging the way that Blood and Plunder does basically the objective control, right? So you have to be within 4, and no enemies within 4 as well. And then if they're shaken, that's different, of course. But they have to, if they're not shaken, then you do need to get them out of that area of control on there. Okay. So the amphibious one is a little different. So the center of the board basically has to have some sort of land mass that takes up about 25 to 50% of the board area that encompasses the center line of the board. We'll see that in just a second again. And it may run to a board edge on one or both ends, or maybe even just an island in the center, right? And you can imagine 2 different pirate crews landing on a small island because they heard rumors of treasure or something like that, and it's kind of a race to get there. The rest of the board is navigable water. Players determine if there's any water terrain and then define the shoreline, basically. The attacker must force, or sorry, can't even read here. The attacking force must have models on the land portion of the board at the end of 3 turns or later, or that force gains a strike point. So again, another one of the neat little things that they kind of do here in Blood Plunder, really forcing the attacker to actually attack and not just sit back and plink away at the opponent, and then basically just kind of swoop in and get objectives when the opponent really, or the defender can't really defend. So deployment-wise, the defending player chooses a board side. The attacker's on the opposite side, naturally. Before any units are placed, an objective marker is placed in the center, and then the 2 additional ones, just like with the land version. We'll see that in a second. But since this is on the water, we're going to have to set up, nothing in deep water here as far as the objectives go, and basically determine wind direction before any ships are placed. The attacker's ships must have a part of the ship within 3 of the board edge, but not the whole ship. Okay, 6 turns as normal. That's standard for the game. Attacker, defender. So here we can see the deployment methods there, and then the objective placement again down the center line. So attacker, defender. A force gains a strike point if the enemy force has units that are not shaken within 4, and same thing for opposing units in that same distance there. So that's the amphibious version, and we'll be right back when we take a look at the sea version for you guys. Alrighty guys, we're back, and the sea version here, so basically the whole board is deep water, and water terrain features might be at the discretion of the players there. So the defender picks a board edge and sets up ships there, basically so that part of the ship is within 2, and then the attacker sets up anywhere else at least 24 away, so again, a little bit different. Then the amphibious, 6 turns as is standard, And so in this version of the scenario, players attempt to control the weather gauge. So in nautical terms, if you had the weather gauge, it meant you were at a tactical advantage because you were upwind of your opponent. So if the attacking flagship is upwind of the defender's flagship at the end of turn 6, the defender gains a strike point, and then if the defender's flagship is upwind, then the attacker gains the strike point there. So basically, this is a big difference from the other two versions, where this is really not just a battle between the two forces, but also a battle for position, essentially. So, but that is a fun one, and again, a little bit different than the other two scenarios. So here we actually get some actual objectives to control and battle over. So let us know your thoughts, guys, if you've played this scenario, and how that's gone for you. How do you approach it for the different versions of it? And just let us know about your either successes or failures with that, and any tips and tricks that you might know for the scenario. Hope you guys enjoyed our little look here. Thanks so much for hanging out. We got plenty more Blood and Plunder content coming for you guys. Hit us up with a like and subscribe if you could. That helps keep the channel growing, and we'll see you in the next one.